In psychology, a common phrase you may hear when claiming a problem stems from another is that it's not that deep. A phrase that can be used to soothe and comfort, and can be well-meaning. It implies that the problem you are having is surface level. Picture, for a moment, a well-tended garden, and imagine a weed sprouts from that garden. To assume that the problem of that weed is only surface level is to cut off the head and leave the root underneath the ground. The problem is solved temporarily for a time, but eventually the weed spreads because you keep believing the problem is surface level. And until you muddy your hands and scrape apart the ground and yank out that root, it will continue to fester beneath the surface. And perhaps maybe you can convince yourself that you don't care about the garden, and to hell with it all. But you will care once that eviction notice comes through the door, and by then the weeds are as tall as trees and it's too late to do anything about it. The core guiding principle behind psychotherapy is that in filth it will be found. The solution to your problem will be where you least want to look. Trauma and exposure therapy all require you to confront that which you are the most afraid of, and these therapies are some of the most successful techniques that we have developed. In the garden's case, it is under that cold, muddy ground where your problems fester. Psychotherapy, in a way, is giving you a shovel as a tool rather than making you do it with your own bare hands. You have to pull things up from that ground as you would your own unconscious. They've been festering there for years, and you need to take responsibility for it. You can make the argument that the unconscious doesn't exist, but even the rational types in the area of cognitive psychology, who look at the brain in terms of a computational model, know that what's on that display is not the whole picture. There are many processes that are going on behind that screen. If you want to look at this scientifically, Benjamin Libet's experiment and subsequent follow-up studies show that brain activity precedes conscious intent when participants are connected to an EEG machine. This has also placed doubts on the concept of free will, and maybe that deserves its own video. Maybe you are more philosophically minded, and for that I would suggest to look into the law of causality. The idea that that crack in the road didn't appear from nowhere. There was a chain of events that led up to that crack appearing. In terms of practical application, why even bother? All of this just seems like a lot of work and a lot of stress. Well, imagine a person may present themselves to a doctor and say, "I keep falling ill and I don't know why." And through much prodding, the doctor finds out that the individual has not been washing themselves, and that may be causing their subsequent illnesses. But why have they not been washing themselves? Because they struggle to find a reason to why they're depressed. But why are they depressed? Their partner left them recently. Well, why did their partner leave them? They kept arguing. Why? Because they couldn't trust each other. Why couldn't they trust each other? Their father left unexpectedly as a child, and they've developed an attachment disorder because of this. If we were looking at this through the lens of the problem is just surface level, the doctor could have just given them some medication and say, "Be on your way." And I'd say, what a disservice you are doing to yourself to say that your problems are only surface level. You live in ignorance, like a baby being coddled by its overbearing Oedipal mother, and it's not bliss. Ignorance is not bliss. Anybody who's been lied to and told the truth afterwards knows that ignorance is not bliss. You cannot escape suffering through ignorance. Problems will always pop up down the line, just this time you'll develop a victim complex because you don't know where the problems are stemming from. and you'll believe that the entire world is against you. And why would you want to believe that? How can you become a better person if you don't believe you have some element of control in that? Being a victim is a psychological trap, and you're a force of nature, capable of toppling an entire nation with the right combination of words. And to recognize that you have that power is to integrate your shadow, to become dangerous and capable of harm. And through not choosing to cause harm, virtue is born. And you cannot be virtuous without recognizing how deep it goes, because then you are just naive. This line of thinking may come across as self-righteous, but believe me when I say I am probably just as guilty, if not more, when it comes to being ignorant of my own issues. I've made many foolish mistakes, and as a young man, I expect myself to make many more, but you can only rectify these mistakes if you are conscious of them. So, look inwards, where you really do not want to look, and maybe you will find your life getting better in the long term.